Inner West High School. I welcome you all to the High School and Youth Speak Out for Safe Schools. We're here today in conjunction with the International Day of Action Against Homophobia and Transphobia, and we're taking action. Yeah, wonderful.
I ask you to join me in acknowledging the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, upon whose stolen land Town Hall takes place. It is a great privilege to stand here in protest against the cuts to Safe Schools program on Aboriginal land. The Gadigal people are the traditional custodians and caretakers of this land, but to fully express the complex and spiritual relationships Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander nations share with their sacred lands is nearly impossible. I stand here as a proud queer Indigenous person to welcome you to this place. The 2014 budget slashed Aboriginal services service funding by $500 million, and now they are slashing Safe Schools by $2 million. This is all happening while allowing multi-billion corporations to pay no tax at all. This government is pro-rich. They have no regard for queer lives, for Aboriginal lives, and it is important that we need to build the people's power movements. Unite the black, the rainbow, the green, the unions, the students, and out the government. The Labor and the Liberal government have been orchestrating the new solid generation, with the most Indigenous children being taken away from families than any time in history. We need independent movements that fight tooth and nail for safe schools and the reinstatement of these services. Whether you like to hear it or not, Safe Schools saves lives. Sexuality and gender isn't a point of discussion for several kids and teens growing up. It's important to remember that while these cuts are an attack on queer youth across Australia, it's also an attack on queer Indigenous communities who have been conditioned by colonialist Australia and taught that who they are wrong.
We've teamed up with high school students to demand the federal and state governments reinstate and support safe schools. We are marching today to commemorate International Day of Action Against Homophobia and Transphobia and Biphobia, which was initiated in 2004 on May 17th to commemorate the victory in 1990 when the LGBTIQA community successfully took homosexuality off the classifications of diseases on the World Health Organisation's lists. Let us reiterate what IDAHOT has been organising around for 12 years. Queers are not mentally ill. The only thing that makes us sick is homophobia, transphobia, intersex phobia, biphobia and bigotry.
How many lives need to be questioned and lost until we have safe schools for our youth? I live with my mum, who identifies as a lesbian and is in a same-sex relationship. Shout out to Heather and Joyce, love you. Many of you will be able to relate when they say that they want safe schools for my peers and I. You will be able to relate when they say they wanted safe schools for them and they want safe schools for the future generations. You can relate. I do not feel supported. I have friends who do not feel supported. I know parents who don't feel supported. And I know youth and staff and teachers who do not feel supported. This is not a small amount of people we're talking about, but instead the government is caring about nothing, not our mental health and not our well-being. The government is concerned about the toes of the men and women in Parliament they could be stepping on. This needs to change, and it is wrong, it is unfair, and it is untruthful. I feel silenced by the government, by the education system, and by society. Why is no one asking myself as a high school student how it affects me? Why is no one asking the teachers and staff how it affects them? Why are they asking the people in Parliament who are parts of opposing groups how it affects them? Because I'm pretty certain they haven't experienced it.
Let me start from the beginning, from where it came from at my school and where I'm really proud to go to as a person who may not identify with everybody else but really just loves to live with the people of the rainbow. Last year, along with a few people who just were amazing people and a few really awesome teachers, we started a Rainbow Schools group called Stand Out. And together we were really proud to implement the Safe Schools program at Colo High. And from then on we started what was called Wednesday meetings at Colo, and where juniors would come along to meet with the senior leaders and just to chat. It was more of a support group, and it wasn't restricted to just those who identified. We were there for everybody and anybody, and we received a really amazing just response from that. And from then on we're still going pretty strong, even though after the cuts have been made, and we're not planning to slow down at any time soon. response that we've gotten has just been absolutely amazing, and the juniors that have come forward, they brighten my day every time I see them, and it's just created this bond at Colo High School that we just couldn't be happier to have. Last year for Wear It Purple Day, we were proud to paint a wall at our school just completely rainbow, and that's known as our rainbow wall, which is where we go for pride gatherings and everything like that. So there we're really proud to be members and identify as that, and we just couldn't be happier to have something like that at our school.
Showing the power of the rainbow community and our allies, many government institutions also commemorated the day. Brisbane Council lit up their town hall in rainbow. We also want to shout out to Sydney Council, Marrickville Council, Leichhardt, Moreland and Richmond councils in Victoria who have all passed motions in support for safe schools, calling for its reinstatement. Shout out. Parents and teachers have pushed these council motions and been a vital part of the continuing pressure to have the program reinstated.
It seems to me that fear is what is behind the many opponents of programs like Safe Schools. Fear of anything different, be it race, colour, sexuality. And if that fear is coupled with power, the combination is toxic. No amount of demands or threats or anger on our behalf can move such people, even when they're faced with well-researched facts. I understand this, as I'm ashamed to say that before my children came out, despite considering myself to be fairly open-minded and educated, my negative views on homosexuality were fixed and unquestioned from my upbringing. And only when faced with changing those views or losing my children did I make the journey with the enormous assistance of PFLAG to education and understanding. Imagine then people with closed minds, and you all know who I'm talking about, and no particular connection with any gay people. So we all know that the arguments against the Safe Schools Coalition are totally unfounded, and that the program saves lives. Lives that I know from my years of meeting PFLAG parents have been lost to suicide. I've met many parents whose children have died.
The whole concept of Safe Schools is to create a safe environment for kids at school. For kids who feel like a minority and are struggling to come to terms with who they are. Asking for parental consent to take part in the program is ridiculous and completely defeats the whole purpose. There are parents out there who, for whatever reason, will not give consent for their child to participate in the program. Queer students that are denied by their parents to join the program are missing out on beneficial information and support that could possibly save their lives. Queer students that are denied by their parents to join the program are missing out on beneficial information and support that could possibly save their lives. Safe Schools offers a safe place, and why would anyone want to take that away from somebody? Especially if it meant potentially saving a young person's life. Those opposing Safe Schools choose to reduce it to a few points. This serves their agenda, but ignores the benefits of the program as a whole.
Turnbull caved into the hatred brigade of MPs who want to see queers back in the closet and in mental anguish. The most vicious of these MPs were Corey Bernardi, who said the program bullies heterosexual kids, and George Christensen, who said the program promoted pedophile grooming.
So in our parliament at the moment, in our Liberal National Government, there's this small cohort of super far right politicians who make up this right faction of politics. They're the guys who back to Aberdeen, and they're the guys who do the bidding of Gina Reinhardt and Rupert Murdoch and the Australian Christian lobby. These are the guys who Malcolm Turnbull had to make a deal with to get the numbers to take the leadership. So it's starting to make sense now, right? So these guys are headed up by Peter Dutton. Yeah, fuck that guy. It's headed up by Peter Dutton, and he has these cronies, and they're really pulling the strings in our parliament at the moment. They have this really disproportionate amount of power and influence, which is then in turn influenced by these vested interests like the fossil fuel lobby and, you know, conservative voices. So what do we do about this terrible situation? Well, luckily, a bunch of these conservative nutjobs are sitting in marginal seats. election time. Yeah, and one of these guys is George Christensen. So, what are we going to do? Get Up is working in an enormous collaboration like Australia has never seen before. We're in coalition with the unions, with environmental groups, with human rights organisations, with academics, with lawyers, with digital tech developers, and we've developed this really sophisticated strategy that I really back, and it's about identifying these politicians that are blocking progress in our parliament and going after them this election. We've got members all over the country door knocking, we've got them phone banking, we've got sophisticated digital advertising, we've got, awesome creative content, and it's all about sending a very clear message that if you are blocking progress in our country, you don't like it. It's time for you to go. We're going to show every single politician that you can either represent the interests of people like the Australian Christian Lobby, or you can represent us, but you can't do both.
I think what you see with the elections that are coming up is the point of having the demonstration on the 25th of June, a week before the elections, is to put equality on the agenda. We've got two parties which cannot be really fully trusted with this issue. For starters, the Liberal Party, obviously, have refused to legislate this, refused to bind or anything, refused to move anything about marriage equality. They want to kick it down the road and delay it as much as possible. But also the Labor Party had their chance, and I think it's only now they're starting to slightly catch up. So we want to put pressure on both these parties, whoever wins, that marriage equality, safe schools, LGBTI rights is a serious election issue, and you'll be expected to implement this stuff if you win. So we want to put equality on the agenda on June 25th. We've already got thousands of people clicked attending on the Facebook page. Please look it up and get yourself attending there, get other friends attending there. There's a high school contingent event happening. It'd be great to get a whole block of young people coming along as one thing. You've got to say, don't want more delays. We don't want the next government to get in and say, well, we'll think about it. We'll think about having a plebiscite at some point, maybe down the road, or, we'll just delay it, or we don't want to put a binding vote, or, we'll just have conscience vote or whatever. These are all excuses for delays. So we need to make absolutely sure whoever's in, that's the first thing we get, is marriage equality, and we continue to fight for safe schools funding and all the rest of the attacks we've seen from this government. So, again, the power is in the streets. We want to organise that. Community Action Against Homophobia has some great events coming up, so please get involved. We've got to put it on the agenda.
So unions have always been at the forefront of progressive politics. We come together as a collective of workers and we use our voice to speak out against conservative governments. We did this against Howard, we did this against Abbott, and now we're doing this against the Turnbull government. What Turnbull is doing is utterly shameful. Everyone thought that Turnbull would be able to change the Liberal government, but the truth of the matter is that the Liberal government has changed Turnbull. As members of the queer community, we all know about discrimination, intimidation and violence. By refusing to fund safe schools, Turnbull has shown yet again that he's part of the problem, not part of the solution. His attacks on our community don't stop here. He's trying to privatise Medicare, and in his recent budget, he cut over $100 million to homeless shelters. These are all vital services that the LGBTI community depend on. His attacks on young Australians can also be seen through his refusal to support the Gonski scheme. Through this, he's trying to create and endorse a two-tier education system. It's also a joke, while he was doing all of this, he attended the Mardi Gras, and we know what that's about. He's trying to go after the pink dollar, and he's trying to get the pink vote in his seat, but we're not going to stand for that. We're angry, and we have the right to be angry. So we all know there's a federal election around the corner on the 2nd of July. We have to show the Liberal government that our voice is louder than theirs. We must tell everyone in our communities and everyone in our workplaces to put the Liberal government last, because that's where they put us. A government that defends a attacks us as LGBTIQ people, that attacks Indigenous Australians, that attacks women, that attacks youth, that attacks our health system, that attacks our education system is not a government worth supporting.
Everywhere! Fight back! Don't you dare! We want safe schools everywhere! Fight back! Don't you dare! We want safe schools everywhere! Out of the schools and into the streets! Out of the schools and into the streets! Together we stand, together we fight! Together we stand, together we fight! We demand